You were never supposed to see me, Ava. Not really. You were supposed to see the version I hung in the window, the one anyone would trust on a winter night in Hawthorn City. The man in the charcoal coat who holds the elevator door when it stutters on 14. The neighbor who leaves a spare pack of batteries at your door when the power blinks at 2 in the morning. A clean outline. A soft voice. A steady hand. You like that story. Everyone does. Everyone thinks stories are true when the ending is kindness. They forget that beginnings lie. Hawthorn City shines best when it rains. The streets become mirrors and the mirrors bend everything they reflect. Neon signs blur into wounded halos. Red lights slow to a heartbeat. Wind drives the wet against glass like a hand drumming a table for patience. Tonight the city looks washed and honest. It isn't. You are upstairs, nose almost touching the pop filter of your microphone, leaning into your craft like someone lighting a candle in a power outage. You are building an episode about a man who plays hero to hide his crimes. You think irony protects you. It doesn't. Irony just makes the knife feel clever. I walk under your window the way a good line walks through a paragraph, like it belongs there. I keep my shoulders level and my steps measured, and I make sure to exist on the edge of other people's attention, never in the center. The center is dangerous. The center demands memory. And I am a man who survives on forgetfulness, not yours, but theirs. The doorman glances at me and decides I live here. The couple arguing by the curb decides I'm not part of their story. Detective Rosa Bennett passes on the opposite sidewalk, her eyes doing the small, relentless arithmetic of suspicion, and she decides to remember me but not act. That's fine. Suspicion is a metronome. It can count the beats of a song without ever hearing the lyric. Your door is on the 14th floor, at the north end of the hallway where the light flickers every 90 seconds because the ballast is tired. The super means to change it. He won't. Nobody fixes a light that still kind of works. Under your doorframe, near the hinge side where the molding bows outward by a finger's width, my listener breathes. It is smaller than a shirt button and dumber than a houseplant. It doesn't watch you. It doesn't break into anything. It doesn't need to. It just listens to the rhythm of your life. The patterns. When your keyboard chatters like rain on a metal roof. When it stops and the room holds its breath. When your footsteps cross to the kettle and back. When your heart changes shape after a notification from a number you still haven't deleted. Caleb. He's a scab you pick with equal parts guilt and fondness. The almost good man, the almost honest confession, the almost future that never was. He texts, and the listener hears the pocket of silence that opens inside you before you answer. The silence is more useful than the words. The silence tells me you're still persuadable. Don't be ashamed, everyone is. Persuadable people keep the world from rusting shut. They also keep me in business. In the evening you host a small live recording at the bookstore that smells like paperbacks and dusted sugar. You stand near the travel section because the overhead track light there forgives tired skin. You speak into a bright silver microphone that looks like it was made to catch secret. Your hair is drawn into a low puff, your round glasses catch the reflection of the audience, and you say, "We ask who benefits when a savior shows up." You say it like a spell, a way to force order onto the chaos. You are not wrong. You are just early. I stand in aisle 4 with my hands folded over a book I don't plan to buy. I watch the question travel across the faces of your listeners like a thin wind across tall grass. Who's writing the narrative? You ask next. I could raise my hand. I don't. I smile at the floor and let the answer sit in my chest like a coin under the tongue. I am. I keep my apartment spare. Surfaces. Corners. The discipline of not leaving myself for the future to find. On the wall opposite the window is my order. The grid. Index cards in rows, straight enough to qualify as comfort. Each card is a sentence. If I read them in any direction, they say the same thing. Get there first. Building access logs, scraped when the system sleep. City camera maintenance windows, the blessed blindness when lenses blink. Your calendar, not the private one, never that, but the public slivers you forgot were public. The talk at the bookstore. The coffee with the X-source. The errand blocks. Flesh wraps intention in noise. Calendars refuse to lie. I add a new card in black ink. Operation Good Neighbor. The best traps don't crush. They cradle. They give you a place to rest so you don't look for a door. In the underground garage, light feels thin. It pools under fixtures and leaves aisles in soft shadow. Concrete takes sound and swallows it before anyone can hear it scream. I stand by the breaker panel and count, not seconds, but doubt. I throw one switch. The lights drop. Somewhere a car alarm tries to be brave and fails. Jamie, the kid who lives 2 floors below you, drops his backpack and swears in a voice still deciding what kind of man it wants to be. His phone flashlight beams around like a searching dog. I time my footsteps so they arrive exactly when fear makes him open to help. "Hey, you okay?" I say, and my voice is warm without steam. He nods too fast. "Stay close to the wall," I tell him, and I guide him out, hand not touching, just present. When we reach the ramp, the lights flicker back, as if the city remembered its manners. You pull into the garage late, engine ticking down. You see me first, because people see what they expect to see first. You see me standing with a kid who looks relieved. You climb out, coat catching the sodium light, and I tell you my name like a gift you already paid for. "Ethan. 14B, anytime." You say thank you the way a person says something without realizing it is a key. Not to your door. To your pace. Now you will slow down around me. Slowing down saves my life more often than speed. I walk home through an alley with a busted mirror leaned against a brick wall. The mirror is cracked in an honest way. The way that says a thing tried to be whole and failed politely. I look at my face in the broken pieces and practice my smile. People like to trust a smile that looks like it is trying. Trying suggests effort. Effort suggests care. A predator's worst habit is trying too little. The second worst is trying too hard. Most men you've caught in your stories had one of those habits. I do not. In your studio, you record a cold open for your next episode. Tonight, you say we talk about the perfect alibi. You say it like you've been waiting to drag a monster onto the stage and watch it squint into the lights. Don't flatter me. I prefer several alibis. One alibi is an apology. Several are a structure. You stand behind your microphone like a person behind a shield. You speak carefully because you want to be fair, and the truth is unfair to people who dream of straight lines. Caleb texts again. You think you hide the way your breath changes, but you don't hide it from the rhythm of the listener. He still believes sorrow can be saved by confession. He will meet you at the cafe tomorrow evening. He will bring something you never asked for. He will carry a weight in the lining of his jacket he doesn't know is there. It isn't heavy, not in grams, but belief has its own unit. Detective Bennett studies her board in a room the color of thoughtful rain. 2 recent assaults along Riverside. The victims were saved by a passing man who moved like a coincidence and spoke like a promise. A staged hero, she says to the stale air, testing the phrase for poison. She is patient because patience is where facts grow. She is not the problem. She is the weather. I can read the weather. At noon the next day, the city pretends winter is gentle. The clouds sheer apart and let a pale sun lie about warmth. You walk south along the avenue in your camel trench and forest green turtleneck, your headphones around your neck so you can hear the world you talk about. You look at people without trying to look like you're looking. You would have made a fine detective. You make a better witness. Detectives solve cases. Witnesses change stories. Stories outlive cases. At the crosswalk on Alder, a delivery bike slips on a stripe of wet paint and slews toward Jamie, who is texting the way teenagers text, as if their thumbs hold back an avalanche. I hear the gasp move through the crowd like a match kissing a fuse. I don't wait for it to reach me. I step forward and take Jamie by the collar and pull, a smooth, natural pull, a pull that says I've done this before without saying it out loud. The bike skids past and the rider swears convincingly. The crowd exhales. Someone claps. Phones rise like a flock of metallic birds. The camera always arrives exactly when it needs to. It catches the charcoal coat. It catches the steady hand. It catches the impression it came here to find. Hero is a costume with better PR. It cinches at the waist and flatters the shoulders, and people are always asking where they can buy one. In the cafe that smells like roasted nuts and burned sugar, you sit in the back booth with a view of the door, because you learned that on a YouTube channel about self-defense, and forgot that it doesn't matter where you face if you invite the wolf. Caleb is late in exactly the way that tells me he was early and walked around the block to make an entrance less vulnerable than the truth. He arrives in a black hoodie layered under a denim jacket that was cool a year ago and is loyal now. He hugs himself before he hugs you. He smiles with a mouth that learned apologies like a second language. He says he wants to be honest, and he probably believes it in the way a man believes rain will eventually stop. I pass behind him near the coat rack. My hand is invisible not because I'm a magician but because nobody looks where they never look. The small RF tag slips into his jacket's inner seam as easily as a rumor slips into a group chat. Later, when he leaves, the tag will travel with him. And the places he visits will write down his attendance without knowing why they felt the need to take attendance at all. My apartment again. The grid. I add a thin string from operation. Good neighbor to a new card. Crosswalk save. Another string to another card. Caleb Cafe. Another to a card that says Riverside cameras, blind spot 218 to 227. The board looks like a map drawn by someone who refuses to leave anything to chance. Chance is a thief. It steals rescue and leaves a receipt you cannot argue with. I do not allow chance to shop here. You publish a short teaser that evening, your voice gentle and precise, asking a city to look at itself without blinking. The notification pings across your followers like a decoded secret. The comments split themselves into the usual tribes. The cynics who know everything and nothing, the believers who love you for saying the part they needed said, the strangers who arrive to be angry at the wrong thing. You read a few and close the app because you know love can be noise and noise can be a drug. You brew tea and you rehearse your questions for Caleb, and you do the small ritual with your silver microphone pendant, thumb rubbing the metal until you remember your own name. Rituals are the handles of a day. I have my own. I visit the payphone near the freight entrance of the community center. It still exists because someone forgot to remove it and because forgetting has a job too. My voice changes. Not much. Enough. I say you should check Caleb's night of the Riverside assault. He says he was alone, right? I hang up and breathe in the mineral smell of cold metal and colder concrete. The best lies are invitations with good lighting and a chair that doesn't creak. Back at my desk, gloves, adhesive microphones, bypass key, slim black watch, and a thin folder of building schematics sit in a line like the notes of a scale. These are not weapons. They are punctuation. They tell the sentence how to end. In the next room, a police scanner murmurs about a domestic disturbance, and a cat nobody can convince to climb down. The city's noise is the sound of its sleep talking. Night is a soft trap over your block. Streetlights buzz. The corner bodega drags its gate down, and the metal complains in that public way metal complains. In your apartment, you listen to an old voicemail that breathes the way grief breathes when it knows you're still listening. You delete it, then undelete it, then pretend you never touched it. People think secrets are what you hide. But secrets are what you practice doing in the open until everyone assumes they are normal. I choose my moment and brush past you on the sidewalk like coincidence making rent. Ethan, you say, recognizing me with an ease you did not earn and I did not deserve. I tell you I loved the episode. I tell you you're asking the right questions. You glow when believed. Everyone does. Belief is the cleanest weapon because it leaves no wound to point at, only a change in posture. You stand taller when someone says you're close to the truth. Predators learn to praise. Praise is a leash you put on yourself. Detective Bennett calls the audio lab to ask why the confession file someone sent your tip line sounds too clean. She doesn't know yet that the cleanliness is the point. Dirt is easy to explain. Clean is suspicious. She will wait for a seam to appear. She will press on that seam and feel it hold. She will not know I stitched it with thread that refuses to fray. Not yet. At the building entrance you pause, look behind you the way people do when a shadow checks its pockets for a face. No one is there you don't expect. You key in, take the elevator, step out on 14, walk the hallway that has learned your gait the way a lover learns your laugh. The flickering light does its small theater and you ignore it because drama is expensive and you are busy. You don't see the way the molding bows near the hinge, not really. Tonight you are tired. Tired people leave questions for morning. Morning is where mistakes happen in daylight and look respectable doing it. In the stairwell the bulb hums its tired song. I stand on the landing below yours, still as a file on a quiet desktop. The stairs hold cold like a pocket holds coins. I listen to your lock click, then click again because you always check twice and I respect that. You step inside and the sound softens around you. If I wanted to, I could push the plan. If I wanted to, I could hurry. But a trap that rushes is only hunger with better shoes. I prefer patience. Patience is invisible. Hunger glows. You post a late-night snippet, the way creators do, a grainy 8 seconds of mood to keep the algorithm interested in your heartbeat. Your friends send you hearts. Strangers send you advice. Caleb sends you a sorry and a promise, and a we should talk like the man he believes he might still be if the door stops moving when he reaches for it. You let the phone face down. You stand at the window and watch the rain polish the city, and you try to draw a straight line between the things you know and the things you feel. The line refuses to be straight. That is not your fault. Lines drawn over water will bend. I raise my eyes to the camera mounted above the stairwell door, the one that blinks once every 30 seconds to tell itself it is alive. I let it see me, not completely, just enough. The angle catches my face in halves and makes me look like a coin someone tried to cut. I smile the smile I practiced in the alley mirror, the one that says I am harmless and also aware of what harmless looks like. The smile that tells anyone who replays this later that they should have looked earlier, but also that it would not have mattered. You were never supposed to see me, Ava. You were supposed to see the version, the silhouette, the reliable neighbor-shaped space in a building full of soft alarms. But everyone thinks they understand their own story until a hand moves the furniture 2 inches and they trip on the same living room they've crossed 1,000 times. Tonight I moved nothing. Not yet. I just breathed in the same rhythm as your floor and waited for you to decide I'd been there all along. Tomorrow you will sit across from Caleb and ask him a question you wrote last year and saved for a man you didn't know yet. He will answer and the answer will drag another question behind it like a net. Detective Bennett will draw a circle on her board and write a date that has no reason to matter. Jamie will replay a clip of me pulling him from a painted line and he will tell himself the world is slightly safer than it felt 5 minutes before. The city will rinse the night off its face and pretend it is new. I will add another card to the grid and another string and another small, polite lie. You will call what happens a breadcrumb. I will call it choreography. You will call it courage when you follow it alone into the dark. I will call it timing when I arrive at the end of the hallway precisely when the lights choose to hum. We can both be right. That is the problem with truth. It allows more than one person to be right if they choose different verbs. You close your eyes and you sleep in a bed that believes in its duty to hold you level. The city whispers its ordinary threats. Somewhere a siren gives up on persuading anyone to move. Somewhere a door opens and a cat walks through it as if it had planned that all along. I stand by the window and let the glass cool my forehead, and I think about how a performance begins long before the curtain lifts. The audience sits, the lights dim, somebody coughs, and everyone agrees to pretend together. They agree to pretend that things are happening for the first time. They agree to pretend they don't know the ending. The agreement is the theater. The agreement is the crime. You were never supposed to see me. Not the way you see the men you talk about into your microphone. Not as a shape with a name and a charge and an ending with a gavel. You were supposed to hear a story and feel a small click of relief when it fit into the shelf you keep for bad people, the one labeled inevitable. But I am not inevitable. I am meticulous. I do not arrive like a storm. I arrive like a schedule. I do not break doors. I move hinges. I do not erase footprints. I arrange shoes. Sleep, Ava. Let the city play white noise on the window. Let the kettle cool. Let the notification light blink to itself in the dark. The trap is not a bear trap with teeth, ready to snap your bone into a lesson. The trap is a couch. It is comfortable and it faces the TV and it asks you to sit for a minute because you've earned it. You will sit. You have earned it. And while you sit, a man in a charcoal coat will measure a hallway and count a heartbeat and write a narrative in ink that doesn't run when it rains. Tomorrow is Act 2 for you. For me, Act 2 started 6 months ago. That is why I am not worried. That is why when the elevator doors open and I step inside and the mirror shows me all the faces I learned to wear, I can look at myself and see a man who is already on time. I do not rush. I do not hope. I do not pray. I do not wait for luck. I leave instructions for luck to meet me where I will be anyway. Good night, Ava. Enjoy the easy part of the story while it still lets you. In the morning, you'll tell the city to pay attention. In the morning, you'll open your door. In the morning, you'll take the first thread between your fingers and pull. And I will smile, and the hallway will hum, and somewhere, unseen, something will loosen exactly the way I planned. The city felt like it was holding its breath, its pulse slowing under the weight of the fog that rolled in from the bay. The streets were quieter tonight than they had been in weeks, the usual hum of traffic dulled by the heavy mist that seemed to suffocate everything it touched. The distant glow of streetlights barely pierced through the fog, creating halos of light that only accentuated the darkness surrounding them. It was the perfect night to execute my plan. I had been following Ava for weeks, studying her habits, learning her routine, observing the way she moved through the city. She had no idea. She thought she was in control, but I had been orchestrating everything from the beginning, manipulating the small details of her life like a puppeteer with invisible strings. I was always one step ahead. She just didn't know it yet. She was predictable. The cafe she visited after work, the podcast episodes she recorded in her apartment, the way she would pace around when she was thinking. Every action, every decision, mapped out, analyzed, controlled. I knew exactly when she would leave her apartment and where she would go. Every move she made was part of the plan. It was easy to control her life when you had all the pieces. Tonight, I stood on the corner across from her building, watching her window glow softly. I had been waiting for this moment. The perfect moment to make my move. It had to be tonight. The city was quiet, the fog thick, and everything was aligned. She had no idea what was about to happen, but I knew. I had planned it all. I watched as she emerged from the building, her figure just a shadow against the mist. Her head was down, lost in thought, and she walked with the same familiar rhythm. Her curly hair bounced with each step, a gentle reminder of how small and unaware she was of the world around her. She never suspected anything. To her, I was just another face, just another neighbor who happened to be in the right place at the right time. She never saw the truth. I began walking behind her, keeping my distance. She wasn't aware of me, but I was always close, always watching. I could feel the rush of excitement building inside me, but I kept my movements calm and calculated. I was patient. I had to be. This was the final act, the part of the plan where everything came together. She turned onto the same street she always walked down after work, heading toward the cafe at the corner. I followed at a careful distance, blending into the shadows, moving when she moved, stopping when she stopped. The city felt empty tonight, but to me, it was alive with possibility. Every step she took was another step closer to me, another moment when she would realize the truth. I watched her enter the cafe, the warm light from inside spilling out onto the street. I could see her through the window, her figure hunched over her phone, fingers tapping away. She was texting Caleb, as expected. The one who still had a hold on her, even though he shouldn't. She didn't know it yet, but Caleb was just another part of my plan, another pawn to push her in the right direction. Caleb was the one thing I hadn't fully anticipated. He was her weakness, the unfinished business that had lingered between them, unresolved. It was the perfect distraction, and I had made sure to plant the seeds. The text messages, the phone calls, the little reminders of the past. It was all part of my strategy to make her question everything, to make her feel conflicted. I watched as her face softened at the text from Caleb, her fingers pausing for a moment before she typed out a response. I knew what she was thinking, wondering if she should reach out to him again, wondering if there was something she was missing. She didn't realize it, but Caleb was the one thing holding her back, keeping her from fully trusting me. But not for long. I moved closer, my footsteps quiet on the wet pavement, and stopped just outside the cafe. She was still absorbed in her phone, her face lit up by the soft glow of the screen. I waited, feeling the adrenaline building inside me. The moment she stepped out of that cafe, the moment she walked into the street, it would be my time. She stood up from her table and made her way toward the door. I followed, keeping my distance, blending into the crowd that had begun to gather on the street. The city was alive with people, but none of them mattered. None of them were part of the plan. It was just me and her now. She stepped out onto the street and began walking toward the alley that would take her to the old warehouse by the river. I had chosen it for its isolation, its remoteness. It was the perfect location for what was about to happen. She would think she was just taking a walk, just following a familiar path. But she wasn't. She was walking into the trap I had set for her. I checked my watch. 11:52 p.m. She was almost there. The tension was building, but I stayed calm. This was the moment I had been preparing for. Every step, every word, every gesture had been calculated to lead her to this point. She had no idea how perfectly I had orchestrated everything. She stopped just before entering the alley, looking around as if something didn't feel quite right. She hesitated for a moment, and I knew what she was thinking. Should I go in? Should I turn back? But she didn't. She opened the door to the warehouse, the sound of the creaking hinges cutting through the silence of the night. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. She was about to realize the truth, and there would be no turning back. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. She heard my footsteps and turned around, her eyes wide with surprise. But she didn't see me as I truly was. She still saw the man who had been her neighbor, the one who had been there for her. She didn't see the villain I had been all along. She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already too close. I reached out, gently taking her arm, guiding her further into the warehouse. The door closed behind us with a soft thud, and for a moment everything was still. I could hear the sound of her breathing, her heart racing, but she didn't speak. She was waiting for me to explain, to tell her what was happening. But I didn't need to explain anything. She already knew. "I've been here all along, Ava," I whispered, my voice low and steady. "You just didn't see me." She looked at me, confusion and fear crossing her face, but also something else, recognition. She was starting to understand, starting to see the truth. She didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to accept it. But it was too late. The trap had closed, and now she was mine. I took another step closer, my hand brushing her cheek. She flinched, but I didn't stop. I could feel the power shifting, the balance of control tipping in my favor. She wasn't ready for what was coming, but she was already in too deep. "You've been living in a story, Ava," I continued, my voice a whisper in the dark. "But the truth is, it's my story. And you're just a character in it." Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment I thought she might cry out. But she didn't. She just stood there, frozen, her eyes locked onto mine, searching for something she couldn't name. I had written the story for her. She had no choice but to follow it. I reached out and gently touched her shoulder, guiding her deeper into the shadows of the warehouse. The mic I had placed on the floorboard earlier began to pick up the sound of our conversation. She would hear everything, every word, every breath we took, captured by the tiny device I had set in place. This moment, this night, was mine to control. "You've been living in a lie," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I'll show you the truth. I'll show you how everything really works." The warehouse was suffocating. The smell of dust and rust permeated the air, heavy with the weight of secrets buried in its hollow walls. I'd chosen this place for a reason. Its cold, sterile atmosphere, devoid of distractions. This was where the game would end. There would be no escape for her now. Ava was still trying to figure it out, her eyes darting around, looking for a way out that wasn't there. Her breaths were shallow, uneven. I could see her trying to piece things together, her mind racing, grasping for something that would give her control. But it was over. The game was mine, and she had unknowingly played the part I'd given her. There was no going back. "You don't understand," she said quietly, her voice cracking as she stood in the middle of the room, her hands trembling at her sides. "None of this makes sense." I stood there, watching her carefully, waiting for her to realize what had been right in front of her all along. "You're right," I said softly, stepping forward. "It doesn't make sense, not until you see the whole picture." She shook her head, a slight tremor in her movements. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you choose me?" I couldn't help but smile. She was starting to catch on. "Because, Ava," I said, my voice low and controlled, "you were always meant for this. You were the perfect piece. You were always going to be the one who would help me put everything into place." Her eyes widened in disbelief. I didn't ask for this," she shouted, stepping back, her hands outstretched in defense. "I didn't ask to be part of your plan." I stepped closer, not rushing, just calmly closing the gap between us. "That's the beauty of it," I said, my voice like velvet. "You didn't have to ask. I made sure of that. You just had to play your part, whether you realized it or not." Ava's eyes filled with confusion and anger, the mixture of emotions swirling within her like a storm. She wanted to fight it. She wanted to fight me. But the more she struggled, the tighter the net became. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about acceptance. She needed to understand that. "I never wanted to be part of your game," she said, her voice breaking, but there was a vulnerability in her tone that she couldn't mask. She wasn't the confident, independent woman she used to be. The fear in her eyes was enough to confirm it. She was trapped. And deep down, I knew she understood that now. "You were always part of it," I whispered, moving closer still. "Everything you've done has led you here. Every decision you made, every moment you thought you were in control, it was all part of the plan." Her lips trembled as she tried to form words, but they caught in her throat. She wanted to say something, to scream, to fight, but there was nothing left. She had nowhere to go. No escape. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, a hint of amusement in my voice. "You never had a choice." "Not really. I guided you every step of the way. You just didn't know it." Ava took a step back, her eyes wide with panic. She was desperate now, realizing the depth of her situation. But there was no use. Her resistance was futile. "You don't understand," she cried out, as though she could change everything by simply saying the words. I still have a choice." I paused, letting her words hang in the air for a moment. Then, I shook my head slowly, the calm smile never leaving my face. "No, Ava," I said gently. "You don't. You never did." Her breath caught in her throat, and I could see her fighting it. Fighting the reality she had just realized. But there was no escaping it. Not now. Not when we were so close to the end. "You lied to me," she whispered, the words coming out more as a question than a statement. "Everything you said was a lie. You never cared about me." I stepped closer, reaching out to her. My hand brushed against her cheek gently, almost tenderly, but there was no warmth in my touch. There never had been. It was all part of the game. All part of the plan. "I never lied to you, Ava," I said softly. "I showed you the truth. You just didn't want to see it. You couldn't see it because you were too busy running from the inevitable." Her body tensed, and I could see the fear in her eyes as she realized the truth. The truth that had been right in front of her this entire time. She had been playing right into my hands without even knowing it. Every move she made, every step she took, I had guided her. And now I was holding her in place. "I'm not your pawn," she spat, the words coming out with more defiance than I had expected. Her voice shook, but there was still a spark of rebellion in her. She wasn't ready to give in yet. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound low and dark. "You always were, Ava," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You just didn't realize it until now." Her eyes widened in horror as I stepped forward, my hand gently brushing the side of her face. "You were perfect for this," I murmured, my breath hot against her skin. "You've always been perfect for it." She pulled away, her hands trembling, but it was no use. There was nowhere to go. The air around her seemed to close in, suffocating her. I could see the fight slowly draining out of her, and as much as she wanted to resist, she couldn't. "You're mine now," I whispered, my voice filled with a quiet, almost affectionate finality. Ava recoiled as though struck, her body going rigid in my grasp. I could see the fear in her eyes now, raw and undeniable. She wanted to run, but she couldn't. She wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. She was trapped, and I had won. As I held her there, her body shaking with a mixture of fear and disbelief, I knew it was over. The game was finished. Ava had been playing my part all along, but she had never realized that she was my piece in the puzzle. Now, as I held her in my arms, I could feel the final shift. She was mine, body and soul. But just as I thought she had given up, I saw it, the flicker of defiance in her eyes. She wasn't completely broken yet. "Let go of me," she shouted, her voice finally breaking through the silence. She twisted, trying to break free from my hold, but I was faster. "I can't let you go, Ava," I whispered softly, my fingers tightening around her wrist. "You're too important to me." The fight in her faltered, and she collapsed against me, finally giving in. Her breathing was shallow, and for a moment, I thought she might fall asleep in my arms. But then, just as I was about to turn and leave the warehouse with her, I heard it, the sound of footsteps in the distance. I froze. Someone was coming.